Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 44th,
There you
Justin,
go.
episode of the
There you go.
Triboro Podcast. I'm your host, always, Justin Alonso, that cannot count, joined on the other side by Nicholas O'Brien. How are you doing, Nicholas O'Brien? I don't
I'm
care,
doing well.
so... No, okay. No, tell me how you're doing. Tell me how you're
I'm
doing.
good. I'm
You're
good.
good?
I'm solid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Little irate at some
Irate.
decisions
Alright.
for both the Mets and out of the Mets' control for All-Stars, but I'll talk a little more about that in
Irate at
between.
irrational decisions.
Exactly. There's some questionable decisions at best that MLB and its players decided for the All-Star game, but
Mm-hmm.
again, we'll get into that.
Yeah. Um... Baseball.
Baseball. Baseball did happen. Baseball was played.
Yeah. Did you want to touch on All Star?
Sure.
Go.
Okay. Fine, I'll talk about it now. So,
Okay.
for the Mets, we have one All-Star representative as of right now, because you always have guys who don't want to go or get hurt, and you have like the replacements, yada yada. So, MLB decided that the Mets representative for the All-Star game should be Pete Alonso. Congrats to Pete. It's gonna come out as if I'm hating on Pete, but I don't mean it in that way. I'm not hating on him. Congrats to him. That's great. I believe it's his fourth All-Star selection. So that's really cool for him. He's obviously going to compete in the Derby now that he's in the All-Star game. I don't think he was the most deserving, though, out of the Mets team.
And I'm not sure if baseball reference is updated, but it is his. I'm not sure because baseball reference is old Dookie. It is his fourth.
Yeah, okay. But I think one of the biggest snubs overall, but the biggest snubs on the Mets was Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo should have been the Mets representative. You can argue Lindor. I would have liked to see Lindor as well, but you had C.J. Abrams and Ellie De La Cruz make it over him, which I'm not mad at. I'm pretty sure C.J. Abrams is the Nationals' lone
He
representative.
is.
Yeah, and then assuming that De La Cruz is the Reds' representative.
Yeah.
So forget about having to be the representative. De La Cruz probably deserves it over Lindor by a smidge. But I get that. Personally, call it a hot take. I don't like that rule. I don't like that every team should have a representative because every year there's always the one guy who's like, you? Like, I
Yeah.
think, what, 22, 23, Tigers, Michael Lorenzen was an
Yeah.
all-star. Like, good for him. That's great. It's good for the players, but kind of like, all right, maybe someone else should have gotten it.
Yeah.
But regardless.
And by the way, he was
Yeah.
their. Ellie De La Cruz is their lone representative.
Right. So yeah, with that into account, Lindor really didn't have a spot, and it's a trickle-down effect from Trey Turner starting the game, which he shouldn't have, because he's missed about half the season up to this
That
point.
was weird. That was so stupid to me.
I mean, that's just the fan voting. That's the Philly fans
Yeah.
stuffing the ballot. So, good job to them, because New York fans just hate doing that, or I guess more so Mets fans, because at least Judge and Soto got in.
Yeah.
But regardless, I think Nimmo should have made it over guys like Heliot Ramos, who has played 54 games.
I feel like he's just a story.
Yeah,
He's just like a fun story. He's not.
right, but it's so frustrating because Nimmo, with a minimum 150 plate appearances, so includes guys like Ramos. Nimmo ranks third in National League outfielders. You have Jurickson Profar, All-Star, Christian Yelich, All-Star, Brandon Nimmo, Fernando Tatis Jr., All-Star, Brenton Doyle on the Rockies, Jackson Merrill, All-Star, Heliot Ramos, All-Star, Jacob Young, Washington Nationals, Brian Reynolds, All-Star, Teoscar Hernandez, All-Star.
Yeah.
I would have given it over Brian Reynolds, too. Like, Paul Skeens is already in for the Pirates. I would have put Nimmo over Brian Reynolds. So it's a little frustrating, but they still have a shot, like I mentioned, with guys getting hurt and guys pulling out. But at the same time, it's kind of like, yeah, you made it, but only because this guy's not going. So it
Yeah.
kind of sours it a little bit. But the other guy who's not a Met that I just want to highlight that kind of also gets a short end of the stick with this is Christian Walker of the Diamondbacks.
Oh yeah.
I've been a big fan of his for the past 2 years, and he should have made over Pete. He's
Yeah,
having a much
100%.
better year than Pete. So he
Who's
kind of gets
starting first base for the National League?
Harper, which makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
And
trying to
then
think about
it's
better numbers.
Freeman and Alonso are the two backup first basemen.
Yeah. I feel like there's
So
so much you could have done there, where it was like Nimmo for Reynolds and then
right,
Walker for Alonso. Because you can
exactly.
still do
But
the home run derby if you're not an all-star.
yeah, but I think I was gonna get into that. Alonso has said he will only do the Derby if he makes the All-Star game. So I'm not.
Why?
This is I don't know, but I'm not saying this with any sources or whatever, but up to the point that Alonso was picked, there were only two guys that confirmed to play in the Derby, which was Gunnar Henderson and Alec Boehm for some reason. So my thinking is MLB was probably having trouble getting people to get into the Derby, but they knew if Alonso made the All-Star team, he was a lock to do it. So that kind of makes me think that, hey, let's get Pete in so he can do the Derby, so we can at least have guys in the Derby to do it.
He's also like a liar. When did he say that?
I've heard it in the past. I don't know if there's an actual quote.
Because in
But
2021 he wasn't an all-star and he did the derby.
well, that is my thinking is that's when he was defending his
Fair.
crown, I guess you want to call it, because obviously in 2020 he didn't have an All-Star game.
Yeah.
So he won it in 2019. Technically, he would defend it in 21.
Mm.
So I think that's it.
Eh.
But regardless,
Yeah, I was just
snubs
gonna
all around.
Yes, the Yankees, they were weird for all-stars, where, so Judge and Soto, they starting it, that's not weird at all, that's,
Yeah.
shocker. But Clay Holmes just did not deserve to be an all-star. There are
Yeah,
four or
that
five
was a
guys that
surprise.
had better ERAs, better numbers overall, that just did not make it.
Yeah.
And just, yeah, I hate all-star games. They're so stupid in the way that they never actually have the best players of that year. And just, oh.
It's frustrating.
I think that Luis Heel still should have made it just because of his start. Yeah, he's been pitching like shit, but it's probably definitely a good thing he didn't make it. Just give him that rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. But just to back your point, Clay Holmes ranks 11th in F4 for American League relief pitchers.
Yeah.
The guys I forget if Kimbrel made it, but Kimbrel's ahead of him.
Did not.
Yeah, David Robertson, Kenley Jansen.
Did not.
Griffin Jacks in Minnesota, Hunter
I think
Gaddis
he didn't.
in Cleveland.
I think it was Griffin Jacks, Kimbrel, and my God, Red Sox closer Jansen. That were the three that didn't make it that everyone was kind of pointing to.
Yeah. So I would definitely agree there, but what can you do? This is chosen by the players themselves and the commissioner, so.
Which is dumb. It's like the
Right.
fucking, what's called, NFL top hundreds, where it'll just have some random ass player in the top 10. Be like, you made the top 100?
Right.
What? Yeah, awards in sports are dumb.
I agree.
If you got anything else on that, we go into Queens, unless
Yeah,
words.
that's all I got on All Stars, so we'll just head into Queens.
Boom, boom.
Now entering Queens.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Queens, where the Mets have finished up a 8-game road trip, 4 games against Nationals, 4 games against Pittsburgh Pirates, and they go 4-4, splitting both series for a 500 road trip. ending with being a game under 500, 2.5 games out of that third wild card spot. We'll get into the games, but first and foremost, as always, your injury report brought to you by Triboro MD. Got some pretty positive news uh, this week with Kodai Senga. He started his rehab assignment. He pitched in, I believe it was High A Brooklyn. He went 2 2/3 innings, allowing 0 hits, 0 earned runs, 0 walks, and striking out 6 batters. Carlos Mendoza on Sunday mentioned that his next rehab assignment will be on Tuesday, July 9th. So,
Today.
Today. So obviously,
How many pitches did he throw?
I think he was around like 40.
Okay, I was just curious on that.
Yeah. So obviously, just great to see Senga finally getting over that hump into the rehab assignment. As it feels like for the past month or so, he's been like in the purgatory of rehabbing, of throwing off a mound. Oh no, he's throwing off flat ground. Oh, now he's throwing off a mound again. Now he's throwing to batters. So finally, he's getting to live game action with rehab assignments. So I'm thinking end of July, early August, you could see him.
Do the minors take an All-Star break?
I think so, or like some sort of break, because I remember reading something saying that getting Senga in rehab games during the All-Star break is going to be a little like finicky
Wonky.
because of the schedule. So I think they have a break, or there's something else going on there.
Well, if they play Sunday, he's fine. Because that would be 5 days, so then he'd pitch Sunday, and then he'd be able to pitch on it's either Thursday or Friday. I think it's Friday, at least for MLB, games start again. So if he's doing it that way, he would be able to stay on schedule. I'm not going to pretend like I know the minor league schedule. So
Exactly. Yeah. But obviously, just great to see him actually getting out there. And obviously, he's going to be a really big piece when he gets back. It's like adding at the deadline, guys. He's going to be our biggest addition. Yeah, I also hate when managers say that. As you can see, Justin as well. I think Justin just left. I think that was a door.
it was a door.
There was a door. He's coming back. It's okay, guys.
I hate that. I hate that so much.
I know. It's so annoying. It's the worst phrase ever to be uttered by a manager.
Because, no, it's not adding at the deadline. It's getting a piece that you went into the fucking year expecting to get. So it's not adding at the deadline, because adding at the deadline is bringing in new talent.
Right.
I
So, annoying. But obviously, big news for Senga. Unfortunately, not so good news for Sean Reed-Foley, who was placed on the IL earlier last week. Sounds like he's not going to be back before the All-Star break, so he'll be there after the All-Star break. I think last weekend, Mendoza mentioned that he hasn't even started throwing yet. So I'm not sure where he is at now, because that's like a week ago. But obviously, just another bullpen piece on the shelf for a very depleted and bad bullpen. Starling Marte, who's been out with knee soreness, he has a knee checkup later this week, so we'll see where he's at. Hopefully he can come back sooner rather than later, hopefully after the All-Star break, obviously. And then Drew Smith transferred to the 60-day IL, which is just basically not... I don't know where I was going to go with that.
Roster gymnastics?
Not even that. It's just... It basically confirms that he's getting surgery. And I think that was confirmed in another report that he's going to get surgery later this week. They're not sure what surgery, because you're going to get the regular Tommy John or the Tommy John brace procedure thing. I'm not too familiar with it. I'm not a doctor, obviously, unless I am. But
I mean, we are the Triboro MD.
Listen, did I print out my certificate from Google? Maybe. Am I still a licensed doctor?
Hell no.
But obviously, this sucks for Drew Smith. His season's over. His Mets career may be over, so sucks for him. But obviously, we just hope he gets back strong, and wherever he goes, best of luck to him. But to take his 40-man spot, the Mets actually did make a small trade. They traded for Matt Gage from the Dodgers for cash. He hasn't pitched much in the majors, but when he has, he's been effective. He's a lefty, which obviously is huge.
Oh, so he
So
was
just
born wrong.
correct. So it's just another weapon for the Mets to maybe call upon later on, because the lefty they have in the pen is very bad, to put it lightly. But we'll talk about him a little later. So yeah, so just another lefty to kind of maybe if things fall right and he gets the call. I think he's probably going to stay in the minors for a bit, just so they can kind of look at him and get him in their pitching lab and kind of see what works, what doesn't, and then call him up maybe sometime after the All-Star break. But that's it for your injury report. So getting into the games, like I mentioned before, 2 4-game sets against the Pirates and the Nationals. First was against the Nationals, where they split 2-2. They really should have won the series 3-1. Of course, a bullpen meltdown in Game 3 cost them the game. But even besides that, the first 2 games were won in extra innings when the Mets just like absolutely exploded in extra innings, scoring 5-6 runs. Before that, those extra innings, they only scored about 2 apiece in those games. So if it wasn't for extra innings, you're looking at a pretty bad series right there. So the offense had a pretty off week, but we'll dive a little more into that after the game recaps. But like I mentioned, game 1 and 2, 1 in extra innings, just huge offensive explosion in those extra innings. Game 3, Christian Scott made his return. He looked a little rough around the edges, I'm not going to lie. A lot of things weren't landing. He seems like he didn't really have good grip on a lot of his pitches. His fastball was missing a little. The splitter that he's been working on, even in his Pittsburgh start, I feel like he really hasn't been hitting that well. He doesn't really have that good control of it yet. That's just what I've seen. But it's arguably he was left in a little too long. He was left in around 99 pitches, almost 100 pitches. And his last batter, he gives up a 3-run home run to make it a 1-run game. Tough pill to swallow. Obviously, it was up to that point. It was 5-1, and then 3-1 home run makes it 5-4. So just obviously a tough way to end an outing. Just even tougher way to put the game back into reach. And obviously, the bullpen coughed it up afterwards. Jake Diekman came in relief of Adam Ottavino and did Jake Diekman things and coughed up the lead. And then in Game 4, for the July 4th game, at 11 a.m., mind you, just they got one hit. They got absolutely shown up by Jake Irving, who's having a really good year. I honestly didn't realize how good of a year he's having. But yeah,
I didn't even know there was a Jake Irving. I only knew of Cole
Right.
Irving.
so my biggest thing, and I'm not calling it an excuse, but an 11 a.m. game?
On a Monday? That's
Oh, it's Thursday.
Oh, okay.
July 4th.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the Monday. My bad.
No, that was Pittsburgh. But they played a night game Wednesday. So like I think it was like 6:30, 6:40 start. And then you play an 11 a.m. game. That's a really quick turnaround. Like, I know obviously they play the 1 o'clock games, sometimes from night games, but usually it's like a 4:10 start on Saturday, a 1:10 start on Sunday. But going from a 6:30 to a 11 a.m., that's really quick.
Yeah.
Even Nimmo kind of said it. He wasn't making an excuse, but he was kind of like, yeah, it's a quick turnaround. JD Martinez didn't play in that game because of how quick it was that one game ended and not the other game began. So just really odd scheduling. I think I saw that someone said the Nationals do it every year for July 4th, which I haven't noticed. But if that's the case, make the day before at least an
4
early
o'clock.
evening, like late afternoon game, 4 o'clock start. Like, at least do that. You
Because
don't have to make another afternoon start.
you also got to
So,
realize for the players, they're getting to the stadium like 5-6 hours before the game
right,
starts.
exactly. So if
So
the 11 a.m. game, call it they're getting there by 6, maybe 7.
yeah, you're waking up like an hour before the game or hour before you leave to get ready. All that. So they're probably waking up at 5, after they probably got back to their hotel at like what, call it 11, 12.
Yeah, something like that. So like, I don't know. I don't think it makes too much sense, but whatever.
No.
So that was the National Series. Regardless, the Mets didn't show up Game 4. They got one hit, and even Jose Quintana had a fantastic start too. That's what pisses me off the most. But it
Yeah,
is what it is.
that was because the whole thing was that you need Quintana to give you length. He's not been giving you length. He's not been giving you length. Gives
Right.
you length, and
And Jeff McNeil is your only hit.
yeah.
So just very frustrating. And you leave Washington D.C. with a split. Kind of hoping for more, but it is what it is. Moving on to the Pirates series, Friday night, they got to face Mr. Paul Skeens, who's an all-star. I think that's pretty cool. I like that. I'll admit. I think that's good for the game. Cool for Skeens. He obviously deserves it. He's been really good, and he was really, really good against the Mets. But what frustrates me the most is the Mets go up 2-0 against Paul Skeens. The next inning, Luis Severino allows 2 solo home runs to tie the game and get the Pirates right back in there. I understand it's going to happen, but when you're facing such a good pitcher like Paul Skeens, and your team goes up 2-0, as a starting pitcher, you need to have a shutdown in after you get that lead. You absolutely have to. And Severino just didn't, and he later let up another, I think it was a 2-run home run to Brian Reynolds at a pitch I was like at his eyes. So that's just really good hitting by him. But he leaves the game going 6 innings, 9 hits, 7 earned runs, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. 7 earned runs. Wow, that's a lot. He must have really got rocked. Wrong. Jake Diekman came in with bases loaded and served up a grand slam. All charged to Luis Severino. Jake Diekman has been in the middle of these bullpen explosions every single night, it feels like. Again, I'm going to dive deeper a little into him later, but he's been so frustrating to watch.
He should have been the Mets All-Star representative. Him and Martin Maldonado, dude, that at-bat would go legendary.
He should be pitching to Pete in the home run derby. That's his All-Star appearance. That's what he should be doing.
Yeah, I mean, he is pretty good at giving up those bombs.
That's what I'm saying. But Game 2, Game 3, both Mets wins. Game 3 was a huge comeback win. That shouldn't have been a comeback win to begin with, but regardless, the Mets came back against Aroldis Chapman. Couldn't have happened to a better person.
Not a better person. Could not have been a better
Chapman
person.
meltdown, trademark. Walk, 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 walk. 2-run single.
That's not, nope. No wild pitches, no hit batters.
Fair enough. But
no shitting his pants. I'm not kidding. If you don't believe me, look up Chapman pooping his pants on the mound.
I remember that. But yeah, so the Mets win Game 3 from a comeback win. And then the last game, Game 4 on Monday, with the most controversial game of this series, I think. Christian Scott started. He went 5 2/3, 1 hit, 2 earned runs. Forgot if he walked a guy, struck out a couple guys. No, he did walk a guy. He walked Andrew McCutchen and then allowed a home run to O'Neal Cruz. Those were the only 2 runs he gave up. The Cruz homer was the only hit he gave up, and he only gave up 2 base runners. So
I was going to say, those are the only 2 base runners.
Yeah, I'm going to paint the picture for you. We're going to get your opinion on this. Are you ready? All right.
No.
In the 6th inning, Christian Scott gets the first 2 outs. He is at 77 pitches. We later find out he was on a pitch limit around 75. So after he got that last out,
You said
they
76 pitches he was at?
he was at 77. They wanted to keep him at 75. Brian Reynolds is coming up, who Christian Scott has got out in his past 2 appearances. They bring in Eric Orsey to make his major league debut. He's a guy. He's a right-handed pitcher. He's a great story, by the way. 2-time cancer survivor. So it's a really cool moment for him. But he's making his debut against 3 lefties are coming up. Brian Reynolds, who's obviously a switch hitter, so bringing in a righty, he's going to be a lefty. I think it was O'Neill Cruz and then Rowdy Tellez. So 3 lefties. In the minors this year, Orsey has held left-handed hitters to a 182 average with a 549 OPS. Orsey comes in. He walks Brian Reynolds on a should-be strike 3. Go look at the umpire scorecard. I looked at it this morning. It should have been strike 3. He then allows a single to O'Neill Cruz, putting Brian Reynolds at third, and a little just off a cue ball off the end of the bat that just finds the hole between third base and shortstop. Rowdy Tellez beats an infield single. The Pirates lead. The Pirates lead 3-2. Justin.
Yeah.
You take out Christian Scott to put in Eric Orsey, who's making his major league debut.
I think you know my opinion on this.
Let's hear it.
So, I'm a very firm believer of if a guy is cooking, you leave him in. Mm-hmm. He already got Brian Reynolds out. Was it 2 or 3 times?
2.
2 times? You already got him out 2 times. I get it, the pitch count, but I think you give him that last batter. You give him that last batter just to see how it is, because also you look at Brian Reynolds, he has a 136 WRC plus. This would be more of a reason why putting in the bullpen arm, because he was a lefty, you said?
No, he was a righty. He just had reverse splits. He was really good against lefties.
All right, never mind. So the stats I was going to bring up just don't matter. I feel like it's one of those things you leave Scott in, he gives up a home run. Oh, why'd you leave Scott in? Da, 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 da. So, I don't hate the move. Personally, I leave him in, because I'm a firm believer of I would much rather give a guy the shot to finish his game or finish that inning when he was pitching so, dominantly, straight up, except for what he had 1 bad pitch.
Right. And just to put in perspective, the 2 at-bats against Reynolds, one was a 95-mile-an-hour line-out, and the other was just a fly-out to left field. So those were his previous 2 at-bats against Christian Scott. So Mendoza obviously went to his bullpen there because of that pitch limit. My opinion, I don't hate the move. I don't hate the logic. It makes sense what you're doing. But at the same time, you understand how this bullpen has been. It's a tie game at that point. I think I forgot to mention that. It's a tie game at that point, 2-2. 2 outs. He's got the guy out twice before. If he throws an extra 5 pitches, if he's at 80, 82 pitches, and you want him around 75, I don't think that's really going to do much. Obviously, not inside that front office. I don't know why they want, I know why they want to slow play Christian Scott, but I don't think those extra 5 pitchers or so are going to be a detriment to himself.
Yeah. I don't think so. But, if you can't go 5 pitches over, I think that's the concerning part. If you can't do that.
Yeah, the other thing, too, is in the national start, he threw 99 pitches. That was on 7 days rest. The Pittsburgh start was on regular 4 days rest, which he's never done in his career before. Because he was a reliever in college. They stretched him out in the minors. I don't think he's thrown 100 innings in a season yet. So that's why they're slow playing it. But again, I don't think those 5 pitches are really going to do a lot.
Especially when he just threw, call it 100 pitches.
Right. So I don't hate the logic. Look, Orzi should have struck out Brian Reynolds. That's where it kind of comes down to. The umpire kind of screwed him over. It was borderline pitch, but it was a strike. He should have struck out Reynolds, but things just got away from him.
Now, was it a thing of he got in his head after that because it wasn't a strike? Or because it wasn't strike three? Or.
I don't know. He's a big changeup guy, and it was just changeup, 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 changeup. He threw a fastball maybe 5 times. He threw a changeup like 15 times. So I think it was just too much of the same thing. He never really established his fastball to then throw hitters off. But like I mentioned before, there should be strike three, lets up a single to Cruz, and then a weak ground ball that just finds the right hole between third base and shortstop for an infield single to bring in the go-ahead run. Just a very unlucky inning, I think. And then after that, they bring in Adrian Hauser. Things just blow up. A double that just gets over the bag. McNeil misplays it in right field. A wild pitch, a home run. Now the Pirates are up 8-2. So I think it was 7-2. But regardless, it just things got away. But I don't hate the logic of bringing Orzi in. I think on paper it was the right move, especially if you want to keep Scott under that pitch count. But at the end of the day, like you mentioned, Justin, I think if he faced Brian Reynolds for that last out, I think that probably would have been a better move. So that's really how Game 4 ended. And again, the Mets split 4-4 on the road trip. So getting some more overall notes, the Dolphins had a pretty tough week. They had a 93 WRC plus this entire week. Like I mentioned, the first 2 games against the Nationals, a lot of the runs were scored in extras. So kind of like without those extra innings, it probably looks a lot worse. But again, they face some tough pitching. Mackenzie Gore, DJ Hers, Jake Irving, Paul Skeens, Mitch Keller. Those aren't names to scoff at. Those are some of the better young pitchers, a lot of the up-and-coming pitchers right now. So just a really tough week for the Dolphins overall, and a brutal week for JD Martinez and Pete Alonso. JD Martinez an 82 WRC plus this week. Pete Alonso 60 weighted runs created plus. 60 meaning he was 40% below league average this week. JD Martinez being 18% below league average this week. And there's a lot of times that Pete came up this week where he could have came through with a big hit, or he could have put the game out of reach and kind of like just put the hammer down and call it a day, but he just never really came through in those spots. So that got me wondering his stats with guys on, stuff like that. 'Cause I remember Jolly Olive over on Twitter a while ago posted or talked about Pete Alonso and his struggles with runners in scoring position this year, and he's just not been good, and that would be correct. He has not been good overall with runners on and high leverage things. So with runners in scoring position, he has a 109 WRC plus, which is above average, but for your cleanup hitter, for Pete Alonso, 109 WRC plus isn't going to do it.
And correct
And
me
he
if
has
I'm wrong, but that was like his bread and butter too, right?
Yeah, he's
Hitting
a
with
huge
guys
RBI
on.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's why he's the cleanup hitter. That's why like the past 2-3 seasons he's had almost 100 RBIs because
He had like
he gets those hits
130 that
one.
one year, right?
Yeah, like 22.
21, 22, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, like that's his bread and butter. Like that's where he shines a lot. But this year is just not shining.
Do
he
you
has
think that's maybe
Yeah, go ahead.
contract related?
I honestly do. I would need to look more into it to see if there's really like a change in approach. But I do think he's pressing a little with that contract coming up. It happens. Some guys do well Aaron Judge on contract years. Some guys not so much. Look at Trevor Story,
Glaber.
Glaber, right? Like some guys, they kind of just they get in their own head and they just don't produce like how you think they will. And I think Pete Alonso is one of those guys.
That's why you
But
signed extensions for us.
yeah, exactly. But he has 109 plate appearances with runners in scoring position, which is leads the team.
Mm.
And just a 109 WRC plus just isn't doing it. It's not. It's fine, if that, but you expect more. But just to get more into it, with runners on, period, forget about runners in scoring position, he has a 98 weighted runs created plus, 2% below league average. And then
Now,
getting into the yeah,
really quick, I
go
forget
for
for
it.
WRC plus when it comes to runners in scoring position and runners on, is it the average in those situations or just the average in general in MLB?
It's in those situations.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just
It
wanted to make
like
sure.
yeah, it like acclimates it to the particular situation compared to the rest of the league.
All right, got you.
So he's been below average with runners on, regardless of where they are. And then getting to some of the leverage stats, which Fangraphs and Baseball Reference both have, which low leverage, medium leverage, high leverage, they kind of measure a opportunity and kind of see, obviously if it's the eighth inning and you're down by a run and the go-ahead runs on second, that's a high leverage situation. That would be considered a high leverage spot. So in low leverage situations, Pete Alonso has a 142 weighted runs created plus this year. Medium leverage situations, he has a 111 weighted runs created plus. High leverage situations, Pete Alonso has a 95 weighted runs created plus. And hey, you don't like WRC plus as a stat? Fine. He's hitting 185 in high leverage situations. He has just not been that guy when you need him most.
Would you want to move him up in the order? As weird as that is to say, we're like, oh, a guy's not hitting well, so move him up. Because in the sense of you give him, you would think less. Like, say you put him second behind Lindor, because you would give him less RBI opportunities, but you would be giving him more kind of low leverage opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, they already tried him second this year.
How many
And
games? Like, was it a big sample
I'm
size, or
not,
was it like?
I'm not
Here,
sure.
I'll look that up for you.
Yeah, but it was definitely for a while they tried Lindor, Pete 1-2. I mean Nimmo, Pete, Lindor 1-2-3. And I feel like they didn't really work out too well. The other thing too is Lindor obviously has been crushing it since moving to a leadoff spot. Nimmo has been doing really well since moving to two hole. And up until this point, I mean, this is really JD Martinez's like first slump as a Met. Up until this point, he was producing in that three hole. So out of kind of caution of like messing up the other guys' production, I wouldn't want to move Pete Alonso up
Mm.
because I don't want to disrupt the guys ahead of him.
And looking at the numbers, his best numbers are when he's batting fourth. It's 120
Right.
WRC plus at second, 74 third, 135 at fourth, and then 755 batting eighth.
I think eighth.
What is that, like one game?
Yeah, it's probably like a pinch hitting appearance.
Yeah,
like lower in the order.
one plate appearance, and he
Right.
had a double.
Look at that. Hit him eighth. No.
Pin him eighth,
But,
yeah.
it's tough because, like I said, I don't want to disrupt any of the guys ahead of him. Do you move him down? Maybe. Like I don't know. I really don't know. I think you kind of roll with it because you need Alonso to be that guy. You need him to be that big RBI guy, and he hasn't been that. And he hasn't really had. Obviously, he hasn't really had like a great year. He's had an okay year. I think it's like a 120 something, went maybe low 130s WRC plus on the year. Like
123.
it's fine. 123. Okay.
I was just
Yeah.
saying if you could guess.
Like that's fine. That's not bad. But for Pete Alonso, who's routinely 135, 140. That's not really what you're expecting from him.
Hmm.
And he hasn't really had like a hot stretch. He hasn't gotten hot. He's just kind of mid throughout the
I get what you
entire
mean.
season
Yeah.
so far. Like he hasn't really had like that big moment. So look, the offense has been great without Alonso really producing all that much on in situations where you should. So I think that's just another step or another gear they can turn on. But regardless, he hasn't been that guy, and it's really frustrating to watch.
Yeah.
Uh, last two guys on offense I want to talk about really quickly. DJ Stewart, 48 weighted runs created plus past 30 days. He has a 314 expected weighted on base average in his past 100 plate appearances, which is not good. If you read it kind of like on base percentage, so 314 obviously is just not going to cut it, and he plays average defense at best. So I think it's time. It might be time to move on from DJ Stewart. Uh, I think it's because he's a lefty that they kind of keep him on the roster, but sooner rather than later, he's gonna have to get optioned. I don't think you can continue to have him on this roster, and I don't think you can't continue playing him. He only plays like every other 3 games, but when he does, he gets a walk. That's it. It's like Vogelback all over again if he was in an outfield day. So it's just PTSD, frustrating. But 314 expected weighted on base average is bad. The only guy on the Mets who has a worse expected weighted on base average in his past 100 plate appearances is Jeff McNeil. He has a 241 weighted expected weighted on base average. He has a 33 WRC plus in the past 30 days. In the past month, he is 67% below league average as a hitter.
I think I was just gonna mention that I think this is almost primarily due to the shift. Just because he was a guy that would always take the ball the other way, you'd have these gaping holes, he would take advantage of it. Because you look at his BABIP year in, year out, his batting average of balls in play, 359, 337, 335, 280, 353. Then the shift gets banned. 288, 233.
Right.
So it's just
Right.
when he's putting the ball in play, except for 1 year, it's his 2 lowest years of his career.
Yeah. So that definitely has a lot to do with it. And look, I think it's just a fact of hasn't adjusted. He hasn't adapted to the new rules. He hasn't really changed his approach, and it's costing him, obviously. And obviously, it's a tough watch for the fans. And me being a big Jeff McNeil guy, it's a tough watch for me because he's playing himself out of playing time and probably a roster spot sooner rather than later. So he can't continue to play. I don't think. I think you got to play Jose Iglesias almost every day until he shows some form of struggles. Because so far, he hasn't. Really good in the field. He's come up clutch hits. You know, he's bottom of the order guy, just setting the table. He's been doing what he needs to do, and he's been doing great. So I don't see how you can keep playing Jim McNeil over Iglesias. But regardless, quickly into the bullpen. Don't want to take too much of your time because I know we got some Bronx things to talk about.
Oh, I got
but
a lot of Bronx things.
quickly, just Jake Diekman, like I mentioned before, he has a 5.06 ERA in this year in total. He has an 8 ERA in his past 15 appearances, 9 innings, and 11.25 ERA in the past 7 appearances, which is 4 innings. He has a 5.61 FIP, a 4.31 expected ERA. Jake Diekman is not good. Jake Diekman has cost this team plenty of games, almost single-handedly. But at the same time, a lot of the under the hood stuff looks solid. Uh, Whiff percentage, 75th percentile. K percentage, 73rd percentile. Barrel percentage, 90 percentile. Hard hit, 74. Ground ball, 79. A lot of the underlying stats look good, but he just doesn't. It just that doesn't reflect what we're seeing on the field, and
Yeah.
it's to the point where you can kind of only do this for so long and kind of give him that leg room to get his feet under him, but he just hasn't done that. He's the only lefty in the pen. Look, he was coming into this year as the second option as a left-handed pitcher, with the Mets having Brooks Raley. Obviously, Brooks Raley going down with Tommy John changes things, and he's now the primary lefty in the pen. But you just can't. I don't know if you want to DFA him completely or just put him in lower leverage spots, but you absolutely, at very least, cannot put him in high leverage spots. And you can't put him on. Well, you can't put him with runners on. So inherited runners to score percentage. Obviously, just a guy comes in. How many runners on base at that point does he allow to score? The league average is 34%. The Mets as a team are at 36%. Jake Diekman is at 44%. So he's 10% above the league average, meaning 44% of those inherited or those runners he inherits scores, which is just not a good line. That's top 50 in the league, or I guess you call it bottom 50 in the league. But the other guy that's been worse is Reed Garrett at 57%. So, yeah, 57% of the runners he inherits score. And that's the way the bullpen's been. They've been costing the team games. Even if they're not winning at that point, they just put it completely out of reach. Just a very frustrating product to watch. The offense has been good. Starting pitching has been solid. The bullpen has just been atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. So, obviously, that's the place they need to address. If they keep their head above water, come the trade deadline, it's bullpen arms that they got to look at. And honestly, I don't really think they should really buy anything else. I don't think they really need a bat. I don't. I think they can get. I think they can get around with the rotation they have, assuming you don't really sell anyone off. But that bullpen needs serious adjustments. Obviously, like we talked about it last week. Shintaro Fujinami is rehabbing. Bryce Montesioka is rehabbing. Sean Reed-Foley will be back after the All-Star break. So there's guys coming through that can hopefully help you, but bullpen absolutely needs to be addressed. And last thing I want to leave this with is Justin.
Mm-hmm.
How many games back can the Mets be at the trade deadline in order to kind of buy? What do you think is that cutoff?
Are we saying games back from the wild card?
Yeah. From at least the third wild card spot, how many games back should the Mets be if they intend to buy?
The furthest I think is 4 or
Okay.
5. My only thing is, like, if you're at like 5, I think it's probably a better idea to sell regardless, just because of how big of a seller's market this is going to be. Like, say that Alonso, for example, you'd get a lot more for him this year than you would other years, just
Right.
because of how big of a seller's market's going to be.
Yeah. That's fair. I was thinking about the same thing. Like 4 or 5, I think, is that cutoff. If you're 5 games out, that's kind of like where it gets a little dicey.
I think
Kinda
it's
like,
5. It depends on the deals that you get.
yeah, but regardless, trade deadline is July 30th. After the trade deadline, they play Angels, whatever, Rockies, Mariners, Miami at mid-August. And then you get end of August to kind of like September. You play a lot of the wild card teams that you expect to still be in the race. 4 games in San Diego, 3 games in Arizona to end out August. In September, you play a 3-game set against the Reds, 3-game set against the Nationals if they're still around, and then you end September and the season with a 3-game set against Atlanta, who's kind of hanging around that first wildcard spot. So the schedule kind of fits. I do think this offense is playoff potential. Like I mentioned, I think the rotation you can get by. Because call it you have Senga, Severino, call it you have Christian Scott as your 1-2-3 in a playoff rotation. I think that's solid. I think you can get by with that. It's just the bullpen absolutely needs to be addressed. But I think they got to play good this week. Have a 6-game homestand to end the first half. 3 against the Nationals, 3 against the Rockies. I think you have to go 4-2 at least. You have to go 4-2 in order to kind of keep things high going into the break and kind of show not only the fans but the front office that you should be supplementing us with more arms so we can make a push.
Yeah.
But that's all I got. If you have anything else to add,
Fix your goddamn bullpen.
Amen. So take us away, Justin.
So, into the Bronx.
Now entering the Bronx.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bronx, where the Yankees continue to suck absolute doo-doo poopy. So, your injury update before anything brought to you by the Triboro MD. So, Cody Poteet has resumed throwing, such as him throwing the national anthem standoff. John Birdie will begin taking live at-bats after the All-Star break, which is a lot sooner than you thought he would have come back. Giancarlo Stanton on track and did some hitting on Tuesday, which was a week ago from today. That is absolutely massive, because I said when he got hurt, and before he got hurt, people don't realize how big of an impact bat on this lineup Giancarlo Stanton is. This team has been utter dog shit at hitting since he went down. Shocker, you can't just have 2 players, now 3 players, in your lineup and expect to be good.
Whoa.
I know. Chase Hampton started a rehab assignment on Monday. Not the Monday that just happened, on the 1st. I think that's a very sneaky one, where he has some very good pitching depth, where the starting pitching has struggled. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they had, I think it was either 3 or 4 the worst qualified starting pitchers in, 3 or 4 the worst out of the top 25 qualified starting pitchers over the last, month and a half. Something like that. So, because people forget, he was, the big name mentioned in the Soto trade rumors, that it was either going to be King and Thorpe, which was a better major league prospect, or better major league pitcher and a worse minor league pitcher, or it would be Hampton and Clark Schmidt. So, he has a lot of talent. Even if it's just a bullpen arm, I could definitely see him making some sort of an impact.
Mm-hmm.
And then Glaber left Saturday's game with a groin strain. I do not understand why he's day-to-day. It just doesn't make sense to me why you're not putting him on the IL, where he's been dealing with this groin strain. He's not been hitting. So would it not just be better for both sides if he went on the IL? So 1, he could mentally reset. 2, he could actually fucking heal it, where maybe that's part of the reason why he's not hitting well. And then you have some other guys that you could call up, which we'll get into later. Jordan Vivas, perfect example of a guy that should be on this team right now. It just doesn't make sense the way they're handling that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My only thinking is, they probably think he can be back before the 10 days, but at that point, you want to make sure he's healed completely, and it probably wouldn't hurt just to give him time off, just clear his head, just chill out for work on some things and batting practice or whatever. But
because shocker, he's not an all-star, so you give him those 10 days off, that would stretch to the all-star break. So he'd realistically be getting about 2 weeks off just to completely reset. I don't know, maybe go on a beach somewhere, relax, get a paid vacation. Just something to mentally reset. Have him
Yeah.
spend time with his kids, realize, oh, I'm in a contract year, it's for them, yada 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 yada. But yeah, I just don't understand why not just tossing him on the IL. Then, I'm not gonna go too much into the games because they sucked. They got swept by the Reds at home. They lost 2 out of 3 at home to the Red Sox. And game 1 of that Red series, Aaron Judge, 3 for 4 with 2 runs scored. The rest of the team was 3 for 31 with 2 runs scored. Aaron Judge had as many hits as the rest of the team in 27 less at bats. 27, not 27 outs.
Yeah.
He had 27 less outs to deal with, and he got the same amount of hits.
Pretty bad. That's even including Soto, which is shocking.
Yeah. That's just... Was it? Yeah, it was. Just... I think a big part of it is the... I told you I was getting philosophical. The philosophy of the Yankees this year.
Mm-hmm.
Where... So, in the Aaron Boone era, this is a tweet by Max Greenfield. It's an X? Is it still called a tweet?
Yes. For our purposes, absolutely.
In the Aaron Boone era, the Yankees this year have the highest contact percentage, meaning they're making the contact the most amount of time, the lowest swinging strike, the highest called strike percentage, the highest zone percentage, which I'm not sure what that is exactly. Do you know what that is?
I think that's just strikes in the zone.
Okay. The third highest ground ball percentage, the lowest pull percentage. The issue is that they're making too much contact and not pulling the ball and putting it in the air.
Yeah.
Which is, if you didn't know, not a recipe for success. There are realistically only 2 or 3 guys that I want, that I could say, you don't have to worry about pulling the ball. Judge, perfect example, he'll hit the ball out anywhere, however he hits it.
Yeah.
Juan Soto,
Yeah. Another
perfect example where his whole approach his entire career, which has made him so good, is he sprays the ball everywhere. So, a couple guys I don't care about, but everyone else is just not good.
Yeah, and just to further the point, a pulled fly ball, which is statistically the best outcome, as a league, guys are hitting 404 with a 1.777 OPS for a 384 WRC plus.
Yeah.
If you compare that to, where is it? We'll call it an Oppo fly ball, and guys are hitting 123 for 405 OPS for a 4 WRC plus.
Yeah. And that's if you are putting the ball in there in the first place.
Right.
So Oppo ground ball is just not good. But a guy I specifically wanted to call out, which I went very in-depth on his numbers, was Anthony Volpe. I'm just done with his contact approach. It worked in the beginning of the year, but you look at all the numbers, his hard hit percentage is down from last year, down 7%. It was 42.3, now it's 36.1. His barrel percentage was 9%, now it's 4.4%, cut in half. I think the thing that very much so is the issue, and this is going to be jarring, his launch angle last year was 14.2. This year it's 6.4.
Wow.
Yeah. His launch angle got cut more than in half.
Yeah.
You look at the...
Barely a line drive.
Yeah. You look at his ground ball percentage in his career. 2019, 35.4. 2021, 29.5. 2022, 27.5. 2023, 41%. 2024, 51%. He's just... Launch angle went down. So he's hitting everything on the ground, and he's not hitting well because he's hitting everything on the ground.
Worms beware. It's
Just
the Brett Beatty problem.
yeah,
Doesn't matter how hard you hit the ball, you're hitting it on the ground. Statistically, it's not more times out of 10 not gonna
yeah.
be a hit. It's gonna find a glove.
Because the whole thing with Volpe is that, oh, just get him on base, he steals. But if he's not walking and he's hitting everything on the ground and nothing's getting through, because guess what? There's no fucking shift anymore, then I almost would rather him go for more, not the all or nothing approach, but a lot more of a driving the ball power approach. Because you get a guy that could go 20-20 in a given year who is also playing at a platinum glove level defense. That's those guys don't come along. They
Right.
just don't come along that often.
Yeah.
And you really need to see him drive the ball a lot more.
Yeah. And look, if he's not going to be your leadoff guy, if he's not going to be that hitter that we kind of think he can be, if he could be a bottom of the order, kind of like double leadoff, kind of setting the table, 7, 8, 9, that kind of spot, if he can be that, you take that. With his level of defense, I think you absolutely take that.
And that's something I forgot to mention, that Ben Rice did get moved up to the leadoff spot. Thank you. But
Which is amazing move, by the way. But I'm sure you'll get into that.
Volpe just has to. I think, me personally, I like 6. That's kind of like what I like. Especially when Stanton comes back, because then you just put Stanton 4, then you put Verdugo 5, which I think that should be Austin Wells, but that's a whole nother thing that I'll get into later. And then you have Volpe 6. I think that just lengthens the lineup so much more. Because then, say you have Verdugo 7, who hasn't hit well, but still, you have the name of it. You have quality at bats that haven't been quality at bats recently, but should be. What are you looking at?
So, I was looking at the American League WRC Plus rankings for the past 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
The Yankees have 1, 2, 3, 4. They have 4 players in the bottom 20 of WRC Plus.
Wait. Verdugo, Volpe, DJ.
Okay. Yep. You're 3 for 3 so far.
And this is the last month and a half?
Last 30 days.
Trevino.
Gleyber Torres.
I was going to say Gleyber. I was between Gleyber and Trevino.
And Anthony Volpe has the second worst weighted runs created plus at 25.
Well, the best hitter in baseball is lost, I'm assuming.
Surprisingly, no.
What? Martin Maldonado's not last?
No. Maikel Garcia is last. Maldonado probably doesn't qualify.
True. He's on 400 OPS watch.
Real.
He may get there.
Maybe.
But
if he's lucky.
Yeah. I just listed off a lot of numbers. People probably got lost in there. A way to more visually, or not visually, but to kind of grasp it more is ground ball to fly ball rate. So if you have a 1 ground ball fly ball rate, that means every ground ball you hit a fly ball. If you have a 0.5, that means for every ground ball you hit 2 fly balls. So, correct? I'm not dumb?
Correct.
Okay. So his career average is 0.74, meaning that for every 74 ground balls he hits 100 100 fly balls. Every 3 ground balls he hits, that's 4 fly balls. Pretty good. In 2024, his ground ball to fly ball rate is 1.92. That means for pretty much every 2 ground balls he hits a fly ball. And when you're not driving it and pulling the ball, that's an issue. Right. The guy from the Jimmy John's commercial says, "That's a problem." Please tell me you've seen that commercial.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is indeed a problem.
And Yankee fans definitely will, because they nonstop play that on Yankees commercials. But just, I don't get it. Like, I get it worked in the beginning of the year, but when it's this bad, and like, they gotta know he's hitting the ball way too much on the ground.
Right. You would assume.
You would assume so.
But I'm not sure if maybe they think he can beat some of these ground balls out, if they kind of like they're not worried because of his speed that some of those ground balls are some will turn into hits eventually, but it's not sustainable at the very least. You can't.
He's also hitting into like a million
Can't.
double plays.
Right.
Which, if you're going to get out, okay, whatever. But you're killing rallies by doing that. That's the main reason why he got taken out of leadoff. Because he was just
Right.
killing base runners for Judge and Soto.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just. Yeah.
Very frustrating.
But do you have anything else on Volpe?
Not really. I think. Look, he's still only second year. You were hoping this was really going to be a bigger jump, but still has issues to fix. I think like you kind of mentioned, I think it all starts with that ground ball rate and kind of in the same breath the launch angle. But we will see
I think
if he makes adjustments.
it boils down to that launch angle and not pulling the ball as much. But a guy that somehow has an even worse ground ball rate is DJ LeMahieu. He has a 58% ground ball rate, and he is 20th percentile in sprint speed, which I think is the most generous thing on this planet. Like, I think that is so generous. So he's hitting the ball on the ground, call it 60% of the time, and he's slow as shit.
Not a recipe for success.
I want to lay out some numbers. Josh Donaldson's worst 30-game stretch as a Yankee. Not his last 30, the worst 30 games. 128 average, 196 on base, 317 slugging, 6 home runs, and a 41 WRC+. DJ LeMahieu's last 30 games. 175 batting average, 270 on base, 196 slugging, 466 OPS, 0 home runs, 43 WRC+.
196 slugging is impressive. That's impressively low.
That is horrible.
Yeah.
That's
Could have been worse than Josh Donaldson.
He's been worse this season than Josh Donaldson's worst stretch as a Yankee.
Holy crap.
And at least Donaldson played damn good defense.
Right.
So it's just, I don't.
He's a liability. Unfortunately, that's.
Like, I don't think
that's where we're at with DJ.
You can't get rid of him because of the contract, not yet at least. But you gotta just tell him, hit the ball in the fucking air. Because that's what he did when he was good. He hit the ball in the air. He's a guy that, if he's hitting the ball in the air like that, I trust him to go oppo. It may be a thing of the shift getting banned. Kind of has the same effect on him. Where he's just so used to having that much space that now he just doesn't have it. But it's pathetic. It's horrible.
It's really bad.
He's killed multiple rallies and just. I love DJ. I love him as a hitter. I think when he was good, he was such a professional hitter. Should have been top 3 in MVP in 2019 over Simeon, which still doesn't make sense. Should have been. He was top 3 in 2020, and then just fell off a cliff. And I wouldn't even call him a juice ball merchant either, because his whole thing is more contact-oriented approach. It's not like he was Glaber hitting 40 home runs.
Yeah.
And just.
What's with it with New York infielders? Contact-oriented approach that just
doesn't work.
Completely fall off a cliff after a second year.
Because contact-oriented approaches don't work.
Well, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So that's all I got on DJ. But staying in the infield, welcome to the rice fields. His walkout song should be Fortunate Son.
Absolutely should be.
So this week Ben Rice had 4 home runs, including a 3 home run game. And some interesting thing I saw was he has 4 home runs on the season. If he played at Citi Field, he would have 6.
That's pretty funny.
But Yankee Stadium's a hitter is short porch. Shut up.
City Field's worse.
So he has a 154 WRC plus on the season, a 904 OPS, hitting incredible. He got moved up to the leadoff spot. He has just been a godsend. It's not even the results. The results, obviously, you take that. But I don't think I've ever seen a younger player with just more professional at-bats.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let me get up his baseball savant really quick. I, of course, just
I'm already
closed
looking at it.
Yeah, so you look at... I'm not even going to talk about his weighted on base, his expected batting average, which is all like 100th percentile, his expected slugging. I'm not even going to talk about that stuff. I will say the barrel percentage was pretty low at first. That's something I mentioned, that he had a 20% barrel percentage as his career in the minors. He's up to 17.8. So that's starting to actually regress to the median, what it should be. His chase percentage would probably be like 95th. His strikeout percentage would probably be about, call that 75th. Walk percentage about 90. So he's just giving you professional at-bat after professional at-bat from the leadoff spot. Like, yeah, he's not going to be your professional or your typical leadoff hitter. He has a 50 sprint speed. But just getting on base for Soto and Judge is so helpful.
Yeah.
It's
even if he wasn't hitting as well as he has, if he just got on base as much as he has, forget about the slug, that's all you need. Like you mentioned, when you have Soto, when you have Judge behind you, just get on base. That's all you need to do.
If you add up his expected weighted on base and expected slugging, he would have about a 1.1 OPS.
Right.
With expected stats, obviously expected, not actual stats, this would be his slash line. 317, 436, 652.
That's very good. You didn't know.
That's incredible. And I don't think it's a fluky thing either.
Neither do I.
Like, obviously, he's not going to be this good for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But the quality of at-bats that he had... Because the whole thing with Ben Rice is that there just wasn't a lot of scouting stuff on him. Because I think he played like a year in college, then got hurt for like most of the year. Then COVID happened the next year. And then he like played the next year. Then he got drafted in the 12th round. He was never a top prospect because he was he was a catcher, and he wasn't the best defensively, which I'll get more into later, but he was never that top-rated guy, but the bat was always there. They always said the bat-to-ball skills are incredible. And I think if he didn't have COVID, if he didn't have all that stuff affecting him, he probably would have been a first or second round pick. Just off the pure bat-to-ball skills.
That's fair. Yeah.
So, yeah, he's kind of come out of nowhere, but at the same time, it was just because there wasn't much. It's almost like I'm not saying he's the natural, but almost like the natural where just no one knew anything about him. And so there was nothing saying that he wouldn't be good, and then boom, insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but getting into the defense. So this year at first base, he has 1 out above average and a +2 fielding run value. Keep in mind, those numbers are cumulative. So he's only played about a month, and he's been a pretty solid defender at a position he just started playing, I'm pretty sure, this year.
Yeah.
I think there is because I'm going to go into a much bigger point if you had anything to say.
I was just going to say, like, and for first base, you don't need that elite defense. Obviously, it helps. Of course, it helps. But, like, you don't need it. If he's, 1 out above average, if he's even 0, whatever. That's fine. You take that.
I will disagree to an extent. Just because when Anthony Rizzo was like platinum glove level Rizzo and we saw him, how incredible he was defensively, he saved like 2 or 3 errors a game.
Fair.
So I will say it's to a point where sometimes it can be incredible, but obviously it's probably the least important. Either that or left. I would probably say left just because first, obviously, you see a lot more action.
Yeah.
But I think there may be a general, I don't want to say flaw, but actually no, I think there's a flawed philosophy in the minors when it comes to evaluating defense.
Okay.
Because they don't have as much StatCast data. So they're relying a lot more on the eye test. Where you look at guys like Volpe. Volpe was like, oh, he's probably going to be a decent second baseman. Oh, da, da, da. He could win the Platinum Glove this year. He won the Gold Glove his rookie year. Absolutely stud defender. Austin Wells. They said he would be, at best, a league average to below league average catcher. But the bat's there. The bat's there. He's one of the best defensive catchers in baseball. Ben Rice, not a good defender whatsoever. I just went over how he's looked very solid at first and has numbers that back it up.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I think that when it comes to guys in the minors, we can't just go off the scouting report, as weird as that is to say, because most of the stuff is the eye test. They don't have a lot of StatCast or stuff like that in the minors. And that kind of brings me into my next guy in Agustin Ramirez, where he is a guy that he started off slow when he got called up AAA, but has been raking as of late. He was another guy that they said, I think, even when Ben Rice was in the system, they said that Ramirez is the best pure bat in the system. And I think that may even include Dominguez and Jones. It definitely includes Jones. I'm just not sure if it includes Dominguez. I think he's still a prospect. Right? Dominguez, I would think he's still considered a prospect.
Yeah, no, for sure. He did not play nearly enough.
Yeah. So they said, like, oh, he's like an okay defender. He's another catcher, first base type. But my thing is say Stanton has a setback in his recovery, what's to stop you from calling him up to DH him? Because you look at Aaron Judge, his numbers by position. In center field, he has a 266 WRC plus. In right field, he has a 357. At DH, he has 124. 124 is still pretty good, but it's also a thing of you look at his last couple of games and he's just not hit well at DH. But then he plays the field and he hits better, and that happens with some guys where they just, because think about Judge's mentality where the team is just not hitting well and you have to sit in the dugout for 2 or 3 innings for like an hour watching, doing nothing. Like that gets, especially as the captain, like that will get to you.
For sure.
So
Alonso's been on record saying he does not like to DH. I'm just trying to see.
Because my thing.
Yeah, really quick. Like, for his career, at first base, he has a 864 OPS. As a DH in 57 games, he has a 784.
Yeah.
And he's hitting 219 as a DH.
I will say this. When it comes to Judge, I do not hate the 3 games of the field, 1 game at DH. Like, I actually really like that. And I think he hits well when he does like that. But they DH'd him 4 out of 6 games this week. 5 out of 6 games. That's where I draw the line. I think that, every couple of days, I'm completely fine with that. Get him off his feet, give him a half day off, keep him healthy so he can stay in the lineup. But when it's a consistent thing, I just think that I don't agree with that.
That's fair. I mean, the only other thing I'll say, who else? Because I just can't remember. Who else do they DH if Judge is not DHing?
That's the issue.
Right. I know Grisham
Jones,
plays.
I will say this. I don't have the numbers, but Jemiah Jones has been better than kind of we give him credit for. I think he has a 740 OPS, which in today's game is above average. So he has been a solid hitter. He's been better than expected. But his whole thing is he's a defense guy, so why not DH someone else and then have him play the outfield? Because he plays infield and outfield. You can play wherever you want him That's like DHing Oswaldo. It just doesn't make sense. Like
Maybe,
honestly,
yeah. I mean, the only thing maybe you give Soto a day, DH. You give Ben Rice a day at DH.
I don't think you
I think
need
those.
a DH Rice.
I don't think so either, but I think just for like flexibility's sake,
Hmm.
you know what I mean.
But
But
then who do you put at first?
DJ,
I'd rather put Oswaldo at first.
yeah, like
Like at
that.
least with Oswaldo, you get energy.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
fair.
And
You
like
get
he has that.
vibes.
He has the clutch gene. Like you get fun from Oswaldo.
Yeah.
Well then DJ's just.
Yeah.
And they even talked about on the broadcast that Oswaldo, when he was playing for like a month straight, he was really good. But then
Right.
he's
Yeah.
just been getting no time.
Not
Where
good.
it's like a game every 3 days, every 3 games.
Yeah.
Where it's just, how do you expect a young guy to be able to hit?
If you're not playing them and he can't get into a rhythm, and then you throw him into the fire, it's like, see, bad player.
Yeah. It's just,
You're setting them up to fail.
yeah. Then, just because I was talking about prospects, Jorbit Vivas. So, Vivas, I don't know how you pronounce his name. I'm going to call him Jorbit. Since June 16th, he is hitting 361 with a 487 on base, a 639 slugging, a 1.129 OPS. Okay, AAA, higher run environment, I get it. 191 WRC plus.
That's good.
He is
That's
a
very
big fish he is a gigantic fish in a big pond.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
He's a ginormous fish in a big pond recently. He's already on the 40-man. That was a big part of the reason why the Yankees traded for him, because the Dodgers needed to clear 40-man spaces on the roster. That's why they traded Victor Gonzalez and Vivas, and then we gave him Sweeney because they cleared 2 40-man spots on the roster. So, I just don't... That's part of the reason why I want them to put Glaber on the IL, because then you could so easily just call him up.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the other thing too is you call him up, right?
Mhm.
Labor comes back. Say he's playing well. You just send him down.
No, you figure it out. Oh no,
guess.
a guy's hitting well. Shame.
Right, but for a roster,
No, I know.
What you get? Does Jeremiah Jones have options?
Pretty sure.
Cabrera have options? Like,
He does. Cabrera definitely does.
So
And I know Vivas plays third and second. So
Okay.
he has versatility.
right,
Because
okay.
then you
That
could say
helps.
first and short, you would let's just call them walks. Where
Yeah,
like
I would
every
say
day
so.
you know your first and shortstop. The only two
Yeah.
positions that aren't locked is second base and third base. And then you
Yeah.
make a competition between, call it, 3 guys to fill that spot that he's not going to be playing between Gleyber, Oswaldo, and DJ.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot easier to stomach having one of those guys than 2 of those guys.
Fair.
So
Fair.
then getting into, I think Wells is the last hitter I wanted to talk about. Let me just double check. Yeah, Wells. I don't get how he's not the everyday catcher. So since June 6th, which is a little over a month ago, he is hitting 271, 379 on base, 500 slugging for a 150 WRC plus. He is 81st percentile in fielding run value, which that's another thing to realize. That's cumulative. So he's been a backup catcher, and he's still putting up some of the best defensive numbers that are cumulative.
Right.
Trevino, this is a very, it's kind of weird, but it's kind of like a nugget I found from digging deep. Trevino has a 65 WRC plus at home, 141 on the road. The Yankees have played a significant amount more road games than home games so far this year.
Right.
After the All-Star break, they would have played 12 more road games than home games.
Wow.
So you're adding, call it, what is it, like 60 games after the All-Star break? Let's just say 60.
Yeah. Yeah, call it, yeah.
So you're going to be playing 36 home, 24 away. So you're going to be playing a significant amount more home games. And Wells has been a significantly better hitter at home than Trevino. Regardless, he's been a better hitter. So it just doesn't make sense that he's not in the lineup.
Plus, obviously, lefty, short porch. Like, it
Just
makes sense. Like, that's not his end-all, be-all, but obviously he can tap into that when... Is Trevino really going to go Oppo?
No.
Right. So, yeah, I think it's long overdue. The defense is marginal, the difference.
And I'm curious how it would be if he actually had the same amount of playing time.
Right.
That's another thing. Would it be better? Would it be this? I think it would be a lot closer, if not better.
Yeah. And obviously, Trevino has been having a lot of trouble throwing guys out recently.
Mm-hmm.
Or like
I think
more
Wells,
so recently.
I think Wells is too. I think Trevino actually has like a 1% higher thrown runners out percentage, but I would much rather still go with the young guy.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else on any of the hitters?
No, I think. Look, think the issues of the roster is kind of coming to light. Ben Rice seems to be a answer for first base, which I think everybody should be happy about, because obviously it lessens the need come the trade deadline. I think the biggest thing right now is deciding whether you need to buy a third base or second baseman. I think that's
why
the biggest
Vivas will help a little. You give Vivas 2 weeks of run time, and then see from there.
Right, and that obviously can be an answer, but I still think at the end of the day you might need to buy one of. But
Ryan McCann, or how do you say McCohen? How do you McMahon? And even then, a lot of people are gonna say Coors Field he hits better on the road, which is crazy. But so I think the best lineup is right now the best top 4 that you should put out, especially against righties, is Rice, Soto, Judge, Wells. Who else has been hitting?
Wells cleanup, well, fair, but yeah, no, fair.
Who else are you gonna put at cleanup? Wells.
Yeah, no, enough.
Because that also lengthens the lineup a little more. So I just leave it on that note. We'll get into Garrett Cole against Rafael Devers, which is absurd. Devers is 13 for 39 against Cole with 8 home runs and 18 RBIs. I am shocked that Cole has gotten Devers out 26 times. Shocked. Shocked.
Insane.
I will say, because everyone's going to point... I just wanted to mention that you can't... They shouldn't pitch to him, but people are saying intentionally walk him every at-bat. That's stupid.
No.
That's stupid.
Especially in a close game. Call it tied. You don't put the go-ahead or even tying run on base.
For top of the order.
Right. Like, you just don't. You just don't do that. Like, I don't care what a guy's stats are. You don't do that. If you want to pitch around him, whatever. But you don't just freely put him on.
Yeah. And I wanted to mention his Game 3, the Sunday Night Baseball game against the Yankees. So, Luis Gil was pitched significantly better. I'll get more into that later, but he let up a home run Devers that gave the Red Sox the lead. And then later in the game, there was a pitch to Devers that was, I think, 4 inches off the plate that Devers pulled for a home run. It
would have brushed back a right-handed.
People are like flaming the Yankees for pitching to him there. That was just an incredible piece of hitting.
That's a ball.
Dude, that may hit if they were crowding the plate, that hits a righty.
Yeah.
You just got to give Devers credit for that, but
got to take for cap.
Yeah, but getting into Gil, so he had 2 starts this week. So against the Reds, he retired 9 of the first 10. So started off a lot better. But then 6 of the 9 guys got on base. He ended up going 4 innings, 2 hits, 4 runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. So that's one of those ones where you just look at that's such a good positive that he retired 9 out of the first 10.
Yeah.
Where only one guy, where with how he's been pitching, and then against Boston, 6 2/3, 4 hits, 1 earned run, which is every home run, 0 walks, 9 strikeouts. An issue is that his walks have been going up and his strikeouts have been going down. Clearly reversed that. And the last hitter that he faced was Devers, who hit that home run. So if he gets Devers out there, he goes 7 innings, no runs.
Right.
Obviously, you can't, like, oh, I could be an astronaut, whatever. But pitched significantly better against a Red Sox team that has hit well, especially against Heel, where he didn't get lit up last time he faced him in Fenway, but I think he went like 5 innings, like 2 strikeouts, 1 run.
He's all right. Yeah.
He labored through it. I just think that this is a perfect opportunity for Heel to get one more start and then just have a very nice, relaxing mojito on the beach, where you want him to be an all-star, but it's probably a good thing he's not.
Yeah. And even if he was, the team probably be like, hey, listen.
You're not fucking going.
Take the week off. Ice your arm for the entire week.
You know the WWE gif where it's just like a doctor and the patient has like a cast on his leg, and then the doctor just bang, 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 right on the cast. Yeah. Maybe don't do that, but I think he has a hangnail that he needs to rest. Then the last thing I really want to talk about was Carlos Rodon. He had I forget what the numbers were, but I think he went like 5 innings, 3 or 4 runs, which the line doesn't. Let me get the line really quick, because I of course did not write it down.
So unprepared.
You're calling me unprepared after all that fucking digging I did.
Yes.
Okay, so it's 5 1/3, 3 earned runs, 2 home runs, 8 strikeouts. The issue obviously was the home runs. He just gave up too many home runs. Like that's the issue. But his pitch, he looked a lot better, and his pitch mix was very different. This is shocking to me. 37% slider, 26% four-seamer. 23% changeup, 14% curve. That is the second most sliders he's thrown, the least amount of fastballs, most amount of changeups, second most curveballs.
Wow. You really
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
He over-relied on his fastball way too much. I think that bringing that down a lot and then having different pitches can significantly change the way he's pitching, especially when you consider he did not pitch well. And a lot of people like to point at Rodon for being like this big asshole. He's like him. He's not going to change, whatever. That's a significant change in the pitching repertoire. That's a massive change, where his fastball was just getting crushed. So I really hope that trend continues, where he's maybe not those numbers. Like I'm not gonna pretend I know what the best pitch mix is for him, but where the fastball isn't his primary pitch anymore.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. That's all I really have, unless you had anything else you wanted to
add. No. The only thing I want to add is I am concerned about Cole, just a tad.
I'm not.
I think that the All-Star break is probably going to be good for him. In the second half, I'm sure we're going to see the Cole that we will know, but I am slightly concerned. I'm not like panic button, but I have opened the panic button.
I'm more concerned for Marcus Stroman than I am with Cole. I don't have numbers on Stroman, but there have been things about like his velocity dipping and his numbers going down with it. So I'm more concerned about him than I am with Cole.
Fair.
Then just to quickly wrap it up, you start a 3-game set in Tampa. So you got Rodon, Stroman, and then Nestor pitching. You really aren't facing anyone special from the Rays. Everyone on the Rays has 4 or higher ERA that you're facing off against. So Just start hitting again, please. You had that 15. They need to stop with this streaky bullshit of scoring 15 and getting shut out the next day.
I agree. That's very annoying.
It is! So,
Quite annoying.
yeah, if you want to send us off on that note.
Yeah, no, so...
Cut the bullshit! The end.
Yeah, basically. Second to last week before the All-Star break. Last week the games coming up. You know, hoping both teams hopefully finish strong. And then get a nice little break. We can watch big men hit ball very far. Fun times.
Bum's not big, man.
No one cares about the actual All-Star game. But regardless, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. As always, remember to subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, and also on our social medias, which you can see on the overlay here, at Triboro Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, all that good stuff. But yeah, thank you again, and we will see you next week.
Adios.
Bye-bye.